What's up everybody, we're back with another raid guide, and today we're taking a look at Opulence on Mythic difficulty. I'll be going over most of the mechanics, how to deal with them, and our overall tactic for this fight. If you're watching this, I'll assume you're familiar with the heroic mechanics. If not, feel free to check out my heroic Battle of Dazar'Alor guides. You want 2 tanks, 4 healers, and 14 DPS for this encounter. Immunity classes help, or paladins overall. It's by no means necessary, but it helps out a bit in the last phase, but I'll go over that a bit later. Anyways, the overall mechanics haven't changed. Everything is just scaled up in both phase 1 and phase 2. However, one new mechanic in phase 1 makes everything a lot messier and a lot more annoying to deal with. And that is chaotic displacement. It periodically swaps the position of 4 players, 2 per side, so 2 random non-tank, non-healer from left will swap position with 2 from the right side. You get a debuff, and a few seconds after you'll swap to the other player's exact location. And if you're not careful, this swap can really mess things up. You can swap people into the flames, you can swap people with volatile charges on top of the raid. You can even swap people so they don't get the gems from the 7th room, which is not too good. However, when you get swapped, you get a debuff that's called chaotic displacement. You take 100% less damage and you deal 100% less damage. This breaks after 10 seconds or instantly upon moving. I had no idea this was a thing the first time I killed the boss, but I can tell you it helps out a lot, but more on this later. And in phase 2 you have 2 new mechanics. The first one is Molten Gold or Golden Radiance. When a Spirit of Gold, that's the ad, moves over a liquid gold puddle, it heals for 5% per second and moves 50% faster. They really should never be near these anyways, so it shouldn't be much to think about. However, the second new mechanic in phase 2 is called Surging Gold. Every now and then, Opulence will increase the size of any liquid gold puddles by a ridiculous amount, so placing one wrong will most likely wipe the raid. Other than that, as I said, everything is just scaled up, and you have the chaotic displacement to deal with. So, how do we deal with this encounter? Well, first I want to talk about the gems. You still want 4 players with the topaz, 4 rubies, 2 amethysts, 2 sapphires, and 2 diamonds. The rest of your DPS should just pick the opal. The emerald is currently not worth it at all, even if you never move. You want to give the rubies to players with little to no downtime, like demon hunters, rogues, warriors, or beam hunters. And for the topaz, try and have a set rotation for who and when someone reaches 100 stacks. We had one player reach 100 stacks just as we engaged Opulence in phase 2, and as soon as that buff was over, the next one reached 100 stacks. And of course, this doesn't always play out like you want it to. The most important thing is that you have a fully stacked topaz when the ads spawn. So just like in heroic, when you're closing into 80 stacks, you can stagger it a bit by moving in or out of the raid. And for you healers, the shadow touch debuff from the amethyst only lasts 15 seconds on Mythic, meaning you really have to keep an eye on this, or people will get flat out one-shotted by Thief's Bane or Whale of Greed in phase 2. So with that out of the way, let's talk gauntlets instead. Phase 1 really is the hardest part of this encounter by far, so this is where your focus should be. So first of all, you want to split your raid as evenly as possible. 1 tank, 2 healers per side, and a mix of ranged and melee DPS. You will probably have to swap this around a couple of times. The encounter gets a lot easier if both mini-bosses hits each 10% threshold fairly close to each other, so they move into the same room at the same time, at least within a couple of seconds of each other. And as you're splitting the raid, the right side requires a lot less healing than the left side, so keep that in mind. So with that said, a few things to keep in mind for each gauntlet, and I'm bringing this up before I go over each gauntlet. The first rule to keep in mind, due to the fact that you take no damage for 10 seconds after a swap, as long as you don't move. Make sure that you actually do not move after a swap. Just stand still, look around, check what's happening, and react to it. If you get swapped into a flame of punishment, you will not die as long as you don't move, so always stand still after a swap. And the second rule to keep in mind, if you have volatile charge debuff and you're about to be swapped, make sure that you call this out to the right side, and the people who are about to be swapped on the right side move away from melee or other players. Doing this will ensure that you never drop volatile charges on top of other players or the miniboss. Now let's check out the actual gauntlet. So I'm going to divide this part of the guide into left side and the right side gauntlet with some tips and tricks for each room to make them as easy as possible. Starting with the right side, here you have Gilot's Bulwark, which uses Flames of Punishment. It casts this a lot faster on Mythic, so be quick on your feet. When the boss casts Flames of Punishment, you want to always get right behind his left leg. This position is always safe, and it makes dodging the flames so much easier. So left leg and run clockwise, so follow that leg. And tanks, depending on how you face Gilot, you can to a certain extent control where the flames start and where it will end, which is helpful in some of the rooms. Nothing really happens in the first room, so not much to say about that. However, in room number 2 and 6, you will have the flame jets. What we did here was pull the boss to that room's exit. When you stand next to the fence or gate, if you will, flame jets cannot hit you. So we had everyone on the right side gauntlet stack next to the exit and tank the boss facing away from them. Keep in mind that most of the times Crush will target the tank, but sometimes it will just 180 swap to another target, so always keep a lookout for this when you're stacked. And after the first Crush, you want to turn the miniboss so it faces into the room, and this is for the Flames of Punishment. If he starts casting it into the room, he will finish casting it as he turns to face the exit. Everyone will be able to run with his left leg and then stop at the exit, never getting hit by any jets nor any flames at all during these rooms. As well as any players getting swapped will always land in a safe position from the jets. And for the third and fifth room, you'll have the ruby beams to deal with. You want to bait the beams as soon as you get into this room. Range, just get to the walls. If a circle spawns under you, kite the beam and use up as little space as possible. Melee, if you get targeted, make sure to kite it away from the miniboss. And if possible, you want little to no fire around the boss when he casts Flames of Punishment. However, if you need to run over a flame patch to avoid getting hit by Flames of Punishment, then do it, it won't kill you. Healers, be on the lookout for this. If you know multiple players will take damage from the fire patch during flames, you might want to pop a healing cooldown. During the fourth room, nothing really happens, it's mostly the dot you get there that ticks progressively harder. Just don't let people die from the dot. Following this, we get room 5, which is the same as room 3. Ruby beams, and after that room 6, which is the same as room 2, flame jets. And the 7th room is the gem room. Nothing to think about here, really treat it as the first room, but do pick up your gems. And in the final room, just tank the miniboss in the middle of that room. The only thing to take note of here is that the Flames of Punishment gets a lot bigger, just like in Heroic. You can still stack behind the left leg, however, due to the size of the flames and how fast he casts this, once you start running, don't ever stop until the cast is over. And with that said, let's take a look at the left side instead. In this gauntlet, you will have to worry about volatile charges as well as being swapped with the other side. This gauntlet is more about not getting overrun by volatile charges or placing them in weird positions. 3 players will get volatile charge at a time, so space runs out fairly fast, especially if you place the orbs in awkward positions. And again, first room, nothing to care about. In room 2 and 6, again, the entrance gate and exit gates are always safe. So you want to tank the boss at the exit gate, melee follow the boss, but range should stay out in the room and dodge the flame jets. This is so you don't run out of room or have to place the volatile charges in really awkward positions. Keep an eye on the miniboss when it casts Crush so you don't accidentally get hit and stunned in a flame jet. If you need to, you will survive 1 or 2 ticks from the flame jet if you have to move through it. However, use a defensive for this if you can. And room 3 and 5 is the ruby beam rooms here as well. Range and melee, you want to bait the first beam, so a few seconds after you enter the room, move back to the entrance. Wait for a circle to spawn and then move. This makes it a lot easier to see who it's following and uses up less space. If possible, try and place your volatile charges against a wall or so that it overlaps with any fire on the ground. That space is dead space anyways. Room 4 just requires some extra healing due to volatile charge ticking and you get the poison dot. Other than that, same old. And room 7, the gem room, is nothing special. The last room, you want to again place the orbs along the wall. They are much bigger here due to overload, so make sure you place them properly. And again, if you have the volatile charge and you're about to get swapped, call that out so the right side can move out. And when all is said and done, you want both mini-bosses to die within like 1-2 seconds of each other if possible. Phase 1 is really just about avoiding one-shot mechanics like Flames of Punishment and standing still for a few seconds after a swap. After this, it's Phase 2. So as soon as the mini-bosses are dead, you engage Opulence. Have everyone stack behind the boss and make sure that everyone is always stacked as much as possible. The only time you don't want to stack is if you have a topaz and it's not at 100 stacks, or if you get either liquid gold or coin shower on you. On that note, liquid gold placement in this phase is key. The further away you place them, the better. You can actually run all the way up to 4 ramps at the end of the room and drop them there, as long as you drop them far away from Opulence. And this is due to surging gold. As I said, the liquid gold puddles will grow in size a lot. So it is vital that none of them hits the raid or the tanks. You can use gateways, transcendence, demonic circles, anything to make your life easier, just get out with the puddles. As for the coin shower, this depends on your setup. You want to avoid dealing with as many of these as possible, and this is why immunity classes and paladins are good for this encounter. If you're a mage and you get coin shower, run out of the raid and ice block. If you don't have an immunity, you will need to get bopped. It's physical damage, so blessing of protection works on this. So we had 2 paladins use their blessing of protection if needed, other players used their immunities, and as we were getting close to a kill, we just had the last players run out and die with it. However, as I mentioned earlier, you can out-heal this. You need around 12-15 players if possible to stack, and use things like Aura Mastery, Disc Bubble, or Spirit Link combined with Darkness or Rallying Cry. It's not ideal, but it works. And as far as the ads go, again, they have a lot more HP on Mythic, but you deal with them in the same way. We used Slow and Vortex at first, and then Stuns, Ring of Peace, and Pushbacks to keep them under the boss. Vengeance Demon Hunters or Blood DK's Mass Grip is really good for this, but not by any means necessary. Make sure you always have a Topaz close to 100 stacks a few seconds before the ads spawn, so you have the 100% crit buff during them, just to make sure the ads die fast. Other than that, healers, make sure to keep an extra eye out for players with the liquid gold debuff. They will be taking a lot of ticking damage. Make sure everyone has the Shadow Touch debuff from the Amethyst, and make sure you have some healing cooldowns ready for Wailing Greed. The first one is not that bad, but the second one hits a lot harder. And for you tanks, swap when one tank's diamond buff goes out. If you're not tanking, stack in the raid and move in front of the boss as you're about to taunt. Always face the boss away from the raid and help out with nuking and managing ads as much as possible. We popped Bloodlust as soon as the second set of ads spawned. At that point, players with Opal will have at least 36% increased damage. The Ruby should have a lot of stacks at that point as well. So yeah, everything times pretty well with Bloodlust at that point. After that, the boss kinda just melts. And I think that pretty much covers everything. Sorry for the rant, but I hope it helps. If you have any questions at all, make sure to hit me up in the comments below. Don't forget to check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me and my work. And as always, if you like these kind of videos, hit that subscribe button, leave me a like, and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.